1 meter of DNA and packed it down into that tiny nucleus. And my thesis was on the thermodynamics of DNA structure. And then one day, he said to me, you know, this is really important because of patience. And I said, what do you mean? And I'd never seen a patient. I'd come from Africa, my whole life I'd been looking at animals and seeing people live, die, but I'd never thought about patience. He said, yes, patience. And he brought in to see us at the lab a woman with xeroderma pigmentosa. How many of you know what xeroderma pigmentosa is? It's a terrible disease. Your DNA repair mechanisms are broken, you go into the sun, you get skin cancers all the time. At that moment, a light went off, and I said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life becoming a doctor, trying to fix this. Well, I did become a doctor. I went to Cambridge, did liver transplant. Never once thought that I would actually go into the pharmaceutical industry, because remember this, and this is relevant to this talk, the pharmaceutical industry was the dark side. Jack, where are you? Leaving academia, leaving medicine, going to the dark side. Well, we fast forward now 25 years later, a little bit longer than that. I still practice medicine when I can, mostly in Africa. None of you want to be touched by me, I can guarantee you that. But people who really need doctors are in those parts of the world, and that's where I go. However, fast forward 25 years, and I've had the great privilege in the last couple, 3, 4 years, to produce medicines that touch 1 in 6 of all the pills, or produce 1 in 6 of all the pills that are consumed in America, 1 in 6 of all the pills that are consumed in Great Britain, and I hope we've done a lot of good. What I want to talk about today is the future of pharma. One thing's for sure, every time you make a prediction about the future of pharma, it's wrong. Great pharmaceutical executives in the 1970s said, no more antibiotics. We don't need them. We have discovered everything that's possible. Everything is complete. We heard about the biome, the microbiome. I think we've only just started to understand about how and what you can do with the enormous diversity of flora and fauna inside your body. Another example of that was prior to 1996 and 2006, the idea that you would recruit T cells to attack cancer, ridiculous. All sorts of crazy ideas. Wasn't part of pharma's business. One acquisition, 2009, of a company called Medarex, and their thinking results in an absolute stampede across the pharmaceutical industry to create immunological agents that attack cancer. And we've heard a lot more about it here. So today what I want to do is just to, first of all, set your expectations to what they really should be. No predictions. I will give you a hint of what I think we need to tackle in order to really take this industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the biotech industry, and hit the future in the way that all of us deserve, our children deserve, and indeed the rest of the world deserves. Because make no mistake, it is the medicines that we are producing in this country and the Western world and many parts of the world where people really think about patients that are going to make the difference. Finding medicines is a privilege. Treating patients, you have to have a covenant with those patients. And I fundamentally believe healthcare is part of democracy. So today, let me start with a little bit of history, a small piece of history, and it'll tell you a little bit about the dark side. Actually, American pharmaceutical industry really started it in 1937, when Merck, against the backdrop of the terrible dark wave that was sweeping over Europe, said, we're developing research labs. Great bold move here in the United States. By the 1950s, you had a lot of phenomenological type medicines, experiential, we'll try it, that doesn't work, and I saw that wonderful example of heroin yesterday. Actually, we don't use that any longer, although in Great Britain we did up until very recently, and still do for pain relief. By the 1980s, a whole new concept had arrived. This is due to Black and the idea that the beta blocker could actually attack a receptor. Small molecules became king. The pharmaceutical companies reveled in this. In fact, they forgot about research. No pharmaceutical company was headed by a physician or a scientist. They were headed by businessmen. And if you look at that period of time between when I was a student going into the pharmaceutical industry and thinking about it, here you had a situation where you had businessmen running the industry. This is important because what they did was they all did the same things, and then they raised the price 10% every year. They didn't think about the patient, they just raised the price. Now there's a lot of people out there in my industry who are going to be very angry at me when they hear me say that, but it's true and they know it. In the 1990s, suddenly you had some of the greatest leaders of all. You had the leaders of Merck again stepping up. People who were magnificent. They said, we want to develop medicines. At the same time, unbeknownst to them, you had an organization actually here in San Francisco